Chosen one, you have moved through the world with the quiet, unbothered deliberation of a predator among prey. While others mistook your silence for passivity, you were actually practicing a high-level sovereign restraint. They miscalculated your composure, but after what is about to unfold, and they will never mistake you for someone weak ever again. Your restraint is over, and their catastrophic mistake is finally coming due. Here is the truth about people who operate small. They can only interpret what they can see, and what they could see when they looked at you was someone who did not fight back, someone who absorbed things quietly, someone who time after time chose not to escalate, and in their limited vocabulary of power, all of that translated to one word: weak. They built a whole identity for you out of that one word. Some of them said it to your face, some said it behind your back, some never said it at all. They just acted from it, treating the answer to who you were as something already settled. That settled answer gave them a level of confidence they had absolutely no business carrying, so they got comfortable. The one running the romantic game, showing up with just enough sweetness to get access, taking what they wanted and disappearing whenever it suited them, got comfortable. They believed your warmth was desperation. They believed your patience was hunger. They came and went as if your life belonged to them on their schedule. The people who had started treating you like a resource rather than a person got comfortable too. The ones who only appeared when they needed something. The ones who made less effort over time expected more in return and kept testing how far the boundary could shift before you finally noticed. Every time you did not react, the boundary moved a little further. And then there were the ones who openly disrespected you, the ones who talked to you in ways they would never dare talk to someone they actually feared. Those ones got the most comfortable of all, because they had the most evidence. They had come at you the hardest and received back nothing they could identify as a consequence, so they concluded the consequence did not exist. Here is what I need you to hold on to right now. Every single one of them was building a case. Every time they pushed and you held, they were adding to that false file. Every time they tested and you stayed calm, the file grew thicker. They believed they were learning you. They believed the evidence was conclusive. They were actually just cranking the handle, and the mistake was not made all at once. It accumulated. It built the way fog rolls in without a single visible moment of arrival, until suddenly you look up and cannot see where you are going. They fogged themselves. Every time you gave grace and they took it as permission, the fog thickened. Every time your peace was read as an absence of fire, the fog got denser. Eventually they were so deep inside that wrong conclusion that they stopped checking it altogether. The case was closed. You were filed under, safe to underestimate. Being comfortable enough to keep going, to keep pushing, keep assuming, and keep building on a foundation that was always going to give way is the most dangerous position someone who underestimates you can ever occupy. And you know what happens when someone builds on the wrong foundation. Hold that, because the ground is about to shift. Now let's talk about you, not the version they filed away. The real you, the one sitting quietly underneath all that grace, watching everything, clocking everything, choosing everything with a level of intention they had no framework to understand. You think at the level of a sovereign, a king, a queen, an emperor or empress. And that is not flattery, that is a structural fact about how your mind operates. Sovereigns do not fight every battle that presents itself. They do not respond to every provocation. They understand something that people who are still figuring out who they are have not grasped yet. Not every fire deserves water. Some fires you let burn themselves out. Some confrontations you walk past because you understand that the energy cost of engaging is far greater than the cost of letting something go. You give grace to some people, not because you are afraid of them, not because you fail to see exactly what they are doing, but because you recognize they are operating from ignorance. And engaging ignorance at full volume only gives ignorance a platform it has not earned. That was the calculation you were running every single day. Every interaction where you chose not to go off was not you losing. It was you doing math that nobody around you had the equation for. And here is something about you that they missed completely, something hiding in plain sight the entire time. Your silence was never empty. Most silence is simply the absence of something to say, the result of being caught off guard, being hurt without the words yet, or having nothing to fire back with. That kind of silence confirms what the other person suspected. Your silence was the opposite. Every time you went quiet when they expected noise, a whole universe was operating inside that quiet. You were calculating, you were watching, you were holding a conversation with yourself that they were never invited into. If you recognized yourself in this message, hype this video to guide other chosen ones to this truth. You were noticing everything. You clocked the patterns in how they moved. You registered who they were when they believed nobody was paying real attention. You tracked what they performed valuing versus what they actually valued. You identified where their real vulnerabilities lived. You were mapping them completely, accurately, and in real time, and they had no idea, because they had already decided your quiet meant nothing, so they stopped looking for information inside it. While they were performing and posturing and running their little games, you were sitting in that silence and studying every detail. That is not weakness. That is intelligence wearing patience as a coat, which means that when the moment finally came, you did not just have power, you had precision. You knew exactly where to place what you had. You knew exactly what was true, what was false, and exactly what needed to happen to make the truth undeniable. You were not swinging blind. A surgeon does not flail. A surgeon knows the anatomy and makes one clean incision precisely where it needs to be. All those quiet moments were your preparation for that incision. You were not absent during all those quiet stretches. You were studying, and when the moment came, you knew exactly where to cut. There was also something working on your behalf behind the scenes the entire time, something filtering the blows before they could fully land, cushioning the impact so you could keep moving forward through things that should have stopped you. You have felt this. You know the way certain things that should have broken you simply did not. You know the way you kept finding your footing in situations where others around you were losing theirs. That is not coincidence. That is divine covering, assigned to someone carrying something too important to be taken out by small opposition. The peace that everyone kept mistaking for passivity was not something you manufactured. It was installed in you, given to you specifically because what you are called to do requires it. You cannot step into your actual purpose while running on anxiety and reaction. So the peace was given first. The armor was fitted before the battle ever started. You knew this, even when you could not put it into words. Something in you kept saying, "Not yet, not this moment. There is a right time coming, and when it comes you will know." You were waiting, and chosen one. What happens when something that has been waiting finally moves? From the outside, it looked like you were losing. That is the honest truth. If you had observed your own situation from a distance during that season, it might have looked like you were getting beaten, absorbing hit after hit, giving nothing back, soft, letting everyone get away with whatever they tried, and they believed exactly that. That was the key. They thought they were getting away with it. So they escalated. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet. Videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, so let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine, and when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your destiny engine for $7 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Here is how it works. You test someone gently once, and they do not respond, so you test again a little harder. Still nothing comes back, so you push further and further. Each time the response is silence or calm or grace, the boldness grows. The bar for what you are willing to do keeps moving. Slowly, without fully realizing it is happening, you go from testing to taking, from pushing to punching, from wondering what they will tolerate to just assuming everything is permitted. That was the season you were living in. Poke and grace, push and stillness, escalation and calm. With every unanswered provocation, something was happening beneath the surface that they could not track. The pressure was building, not in a way that showed, not in a way that gave any warning, but underneath, in the sovereign place where you were processing all of it, something was accumulating. Think about a jack in the box. You crank the handle, the music plays, nothing happens. You crank more, the music keeps going, still nothing. After enough cranking with no result, you make a decision. You decide this one is broken, this one is empty, this one is safe. So you relax, cranking with one hand, looking away, fully comfortable, because everything so far has taught you that nothing is coming. That was them. They had fully and completely decided that nothing was ever going to come from you. Here is the irony that should land on you right now. The most dangerous moment was the moment they felt the most safe. The moment they dropped their guard completely was the exact moment the handle had been cranked as far as it could go. Now here is the part that gets misread, even sometimes in retrospect, even sometimes by you. That final provocation that unlocked your response. It was not necessarily the worst one. It was not some dramatic crossing of a line that nothing before it had crossed. In many cases it was something almost ordinary, something that if it had been the first offense would have received a completely normal reaction. But it was not the first offense, it was the last one. And the last one carries the full accumulated weight of every single one that came before it. You did not respond to that one moment. You responded to all of them, every swallowed reaction, every unanswered poke, every time you held the venom back. All of it had been gathering behind a wall. And that final provocation did not chip a crack in that wall. It brought the whole wall down. What came through was proportional, not to what they did last, but to everything that had been building since the beginning. That is why it landed the way it did. They had only ever seen the surface of you. They believed the surface was the entire picture. They had no idea what had been building beneath it. And then it happened. You did something you had never done before, not because you planned it the night before, not because you woke up deciding today would be the day. Something in you, that deep, sovereign, covered part of you, finally said, now, and you moved. For some of you it was words, sharp, clear, thunder words that landed like a verdict with no appeal. For some of you it was an action, a boundary drawn so clean and so final that no explanation was needed. For some of you it was simply a shift in energy, the way you carried yourself, the way you stopped performing softness for people who had already proven they did not deserve it. Whatever it was, however it arrived, it was unmistakable. Your venom came out. Understand what that means. It was not you losing control. It was not you cracking under pressure or becoming someone different from who you are. It was you becoming more fully yourself than you had ever allowed yourself to be in front of them. The venom was never separate from you. It was always part of you, the part you had been housing carefully and managing with grace, peace, and sovereign-level restraint. When it came out, it did not come out chaotic. It came out clear. That clarity was the part that broke through their defenses. Not simply that it existed, but that it was controlled. Chaos can be dismissed. You can call chaos a breakdown, an overreaction, a one-time snap that will not happen again. but something that arrives with precision and intention, with the quiet certainty of someone who knows exactly what they are doing and could do it much harder if they chose to, that cannot be dismissed, that demands to be sat with, and they sat with it. The entire atmosphere shifted. The whole understanding of who you were shifted in real time, and the most devastating part, the part that hit the deepest, was not the strength they finally saw, it was the math that immediately followed. If this was always in you, then every time you did not use it was a choice, every single time. Now watch what people do in the immediate aftermath of seeing something they were not prepared for. Their reaction tells you exactly who they are under pressure. Some of them went completely quiet. The loudest ones, the most persistent, the most confident in their wrong read of you, they became the most silent. Not because nothing was happening inside them, but because what was happening inside was too large to put into words yet. They needed time to let the new information reorganize everything else they had believed. That silence after the moment is the sound of a worldview restructuring. It is the sound of someone releasing a conclusion they had been gripping tightly and finally accepting that the truth was something they had never once considered. That silence is respect arriving. Late but arriving. Others immediately performed. They laughed a little too quickly. They moved a little too casually. They acted like what just happened was not significant. But that performance of being unbothered is the loudest possible proof that they were deeply bothered. People who are genuinely unaffected do not need to perform being unaffected. Both groups received the same truth, they just processed it differently. But neither one of them will ever come at you the same way again. Here is what happened inside every person who had you figured out wrong. First came shock, pure electric destabilizing shock. The version of you they were looking at did not match the file they had been building. The mind scrambles when that happens. It tries to reconcile, to explain, to force new information into a shape that fits what it already believed. When the scrambling settled, the math started. If you had this the whole time, if this power and clarity and fire were always present and always under your control, then you were in control of it every single time they came at you and you chose not to respond. Every time they pushed the line and you let it slide. Every time they said something they had no business saying and you absorbed it without detonating. Every single one of those moments was not an absence of power. Every single one of those moments was the exercise of power. The most sophisticated kind, the kind that says, I see you, I could end this right now, and I am choosing, consciously, deliberately, sovereignly choosing not to, because you are not worth what responding would cost me. They were never safe, they were never getting away with anything. They were being spared by someone who had the full capacity to respond very differently and made a deliberate decision not to. That is what broke them, not the strength, the grace behind the strength. Strength alone can be fought. You can build a counter-narrative around strength alone. But strength plus grace, power plus mercy, the demonstrated ability to level someone, combined with the demonstrated choice not to, that has no defense. It lands in the center of the conscience, and it stays there. And then there is a deeper layer, the one that hits later, maybe when they are alone, maybe when something in their own life forces them to face it. They are going to realize that you saw all of it, that the whole time they believed they were being clever, you had them completely clocked, that the version of you they thought they were getting one over on was never real to begin with. You were never confused about what was happening. You were never naive about their motives. You were never actually as soft as their plan required you to be. You just chose not to make it a thing. And that the fact that you saw them clearly the entire time and still chose grace is the realization that stays with people permanently, because it removes the final defense. When someone has been caught running a game, the last thing they can tell themselves is, at least they did not see it coming. At least there is some dignity left in the not knowing. You knew, you always knew, and you gave grace anyway. That level of grace does not come from weakness. It comes from a foundation so solid and an understanding of your own worth so complete that you did not need anyone around you to behave correctly in order to stay whole. Your wholeness was never dependent on their behavior. That is not a small thing, that is everything. Here is the layer underneath all of it that was operating the entire time, the part nobody around you was tracking. You were not doing this alone. There is a version of this where you take all the credit, call yourself disciplined and self-made, and stop there. And yes, you are disciplined, you are strong, but that is not the complete picture. Something was working on your behalf the whole time. Something was filtering what was aimed at you before it could fully land. Something was absorbing what was sent against your peace and converting it into the very fuel that kept you grounded. The peace that everyone called passivity was not something you manufactured on your own. It was given to you specifically because you cannot step into what you are here to do with your peace dismantled. The armor was fitted before the battle ever started. The people who came for you never understood that. They thought they were picking a fight with you. They were actually running headfirst into something much larger than either of you, something that was never going to allow what was placed inside you to be destroyed by people operating with incomplete information. Every attack slid off because it was supposed to slide off. Every attempt to diminish you failed because it was always going to fail. Not just because you are strong, because you are covered, and what is covered does not fall. You now know something about yourself that cannot be taken back, not from someone else's opinion of you, not from a motivational speech, from direct, lived, undeniable experience. You know that your peace holds under real pressure. You know that when the moment demands it, what comes out of you is precise and controlled, and lands exactly where it is supposed to land. You know that what lives in you cannot be removed by people who do not understand what they are dealing with. That knowing now lives in your spine. It lives in the pace of your walk, in the way you hold yourself, in the amount of energy you spend trying to manage other people's perceptions of you, which from here forward is zero, because you know the truth. And you know that when the truth needs to be seen, it arrives on its own. You do not have to force it, announce it, or manage it. It does exactly what it is supposed to do, exactly when it is supposed to do it. That is not something you built from scratch. That is something you were given, and knowing you carry it is half the power right there. Now let's talk about what winning actually looks like, because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. Many people think winning means going back to everyone who doubted them and making sure those people know they lost. They think victory has to be loud to be real. They think triumph must be performed to count. That is not your energy. It never was. Your kind of victory is far more powerful than that. The victory you have earned is not built on drama. It is built on truth. And truth does not need an announcement. It just needs to arrive. When it does more work than any announcement ever could. You do not have to tell anyone anything. The atmosphere already shifted on its own. The respect that was always owed to you and always withheld. Watch it arrive without you chasing it. Watch the tone change. Watch the approach change. Watch the people who once came at you sideways now choose their words with a care they never used to bother with. Watch the ones who were running games suddenly realize the game no longer has a board to play on. Notice also how the victory feels from the inside. It does not feel like revenge. There is no bitter satisfaction sitting in your chest. You are not mentally updating a scoreboard. It does not feel like payback. It feels like arrival. You have not landed at revenge. You have landed at truth. The truth of who you are is now occupying exactly the amount of space it was always supposed to occupy. You are not louder now. You are clearer. You are not more aggressive now. You are more anchored. You are not performing power now. You are living from it. That distinction between performing strength and living from it is what everyone around you can sense even when they cannot name it. Something in the atmosphere around you is different, not because you changed, but because they finally perceive you accurately. And accuracy feels entirely different from the fog they were navigating before. Now let's be real about something. Not everyone is going to have the reckoning. Not everyone who got you wrong will do the work of correcting themselves and coming back humbled. Some of them, and you already know exactly who these ones are going to try to flip the script. Oh, so you have an attitude now. Oh, so now you think you are something. Oh, I was just expressing myself, and you could not handle it. Watch the ones who, the moment they felt the shift in you, immediately moved to position themselves as the injured party. The ones who looked directly at your clarity, at the undeniable truth of who you are, and instead of sitting with what it revealed about them, immediately started constructing a new conclusion where you are the problem. Those people are showing you exactly where they are in their own development. They are showing you that the lesson has not landed for them yet. And your job, chosen ones, this is the part that requires the most sovereignty. Your job is not to make the lesson land for them. Your job is not to chase anyone into understanding. Your job is not to justify yourself, revisit receipts, or keep proving a case that the truth has already decided. Your job is to believe what people show you and move accordingly. Some people get your grace, some people get your firm boundary, and some people, the ones who, when they finally see your power, try to use it as ammunition against you, simply get your back. Not your anger, not a long explanation, just your back. You are not here to rescue everyone. Some people are in your path for the sole purpose of showing you where the line is. Now you know where the line is. Draw it cleanly, walk away cleanly. No mess, no noise, no extended goodbye. Pay attention to your energy going forward. Every interaction has a cost. Every person who gets access to your time and attention is drawing from something that is finite and valuable. The mistake to avoid is not being too generous or too guarded. It is being undiscerning. Let people reveal who they are over time, not just in the dramatic moment of reckoning, and not just in the performance that follows immediately after the shock wears off. Character shows itself in the quiet, ordinary moments when nothing is at stake and nobody is watching. Let those moments be your standard. Your no is thunder. Let it fall once. Thunder does not repeat itself to make sure you heard it. Here is what changed, and here is what did not. What changed is how you are perceived, how people approach you, the tone they use, the consideration they now bring before opening their mouths. The respect that was always supposed to be present is now actually present. What did not change is you. That is the crucial thing. Because the trap, the one that brings down people who finally get their moment, is believing the moment is what made them. It is believing that the reveal, the venom, the shift in how people now see them is the source of their power, and so they start performing it. They become aggressive when aggression is not needed, sharp when softness would serve better, loud when silence would land with far more impact. They start doing the exact thing the people who underestimated them were doing all along, mistaking performance for power. Do not do that. You were powerful before anyone knew it. You were covered before anyone could see it. You were carrying a crown long before anyone was ready to recognize it. The moment did not give you any of that. The moment simply revealed it, and the revealing was necessary, not for you but for the clearing. It was necessary for the environment around you to finally align with the truth of what you are. You have not become the bear. You were always the bear. The forest simply got a reminder, so walk the way you walked before, with that same quiet, that same deliberate, unhurried, sovereign calm. Give grace with the same spirit, but more selectively now, because you fully understand its weight. Protect your peace with more intention now, because you understand exactly what it cost to maintain it through everything you walked through. Now here is something worth saying directly, because it matters. Somewhere in the middle of all that poking and all that patience and all that choosing grace, something started to creep in. Something that was never originally yours but got layered onto you anyway. You started wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe you were too much, maybe you were not enough. Maybe the version of you that wanted to show up fully was somehow out of place. Maybe your strength needed to be kept smaller so the people around you could stay comfortable. That wondering was the only real weapon they ever had against you, and it did not work. Because the venom was always there, because the divine covering was always there, because whatever was placed inside you was specifically built to survive the environment you were put in. The doubt tried to take root, and it did not get purchase. Something in you rejected it the same way a body rejects what it was never designed to carry. You are exactly who you were always supposed to be, not despite everything that happened, but because of it. Every moment of that season built something in you that cannot be unbuilt. It gave you a knowledge of your own ground that you could only earn by being shaken and discovering that the ground did not move. Now you know. The ground does not move. You do not move. And everyone around you is learning to build with that truth in mind. And consider the people who were observing from outside the direct situation, the ones who witnessed the shift without being the ones who caused it. For those people, watching your truth finally land and prove itself undeniable was its own kind of revelation. An observer cannot dismiss what they see as a fluke or a one-time reaction. An observer just sees clearly, without the defensive noise that clouds the judgment of someone who got it wrong. Those witnesses carry the accurate truth about you into every conversation they have. You did not just build a new perception, you built a reputation that maintains itself without your involvement. And do not overlook the people who were always right about you, the ones who saw you clearly from the beginning and held that knowing, even when everyone around them disagreed. Standing as the only one with the accurate picture, surrounded by people running a false one, is an exhausting place to hold. When the truth finally became undeniable, when the atmosphere finally caught up, those people exhaled, something released in them as well. Honor that, not with obligation, but with recognition. They held the right perception of you when doing so cost them something. That kind of loyalty deserves to be honored with your attention, your trust, and the best of what you have to give going forward. Build with them. Those are your people. Do not forget who you were before they knew. Do not forget the version of you that held grace so long it became legendary. Do not forget the peace that kept you standing when everything around you was engineered to bring you down. Do not let the shift in how people now see you alter how you see yourself, because you saw yourself clearly the entire time. That clarity was always the foundation everything else stood on. Keep giving grace, but give it from a position of full knowing now, not from the bottom of the barrel, not from a place of uncertainty about your own worth. Give it from the overflow of someone who has so much of what they need that they can afford to extend it even to people who have not earned it. Grace from abundance, grace from power, grace from the unshakable certainty that you need nothing from anyone, because what was placed inside you is already more than enough. Keep choosing peace, not because conflict frightens you, but because you know exactly what you are capable of when peace runs out. And you do not deploy that lightly. The bear does not charge unless charging is necessary. And because of everything that has happened, it will be necessary far less often going forward, because they know now, all of them know, and that knowing permanently changes the odds of anyone being foolish enough to keep cranking the handle. When someone new enters your life who has not gotten the message yet, and they will, chosen ones, because they always do, you do not need to explain yourself to them either. Just be who you are. Let the grace confuse them. Let the peace disarm them. Let the quiet do what quiet has always done. And if they are foolish enough to keep cranking anyway, you know what comes out of the box. They will learn what everyone else learned. They will arrive at the same place that every person who has ever mistaken your grace for weakness eventually, inevitably and permanently arrives. You were never what they thought you were. You are covered. You are chosen. You are carrying something that cannot be taken, cannot be diminished, and cannot be destroyed by anyone who does not understand what it is. Every single person who has ever tried to take it, diminish it, or destroy it has walked away from the attempt with a permanent and humbling recalibration of exactly who they were dealing with. They will never mistake you for weak again. Not the ones who already know. Not the ones who are about to find out. Not anyone. Not in this lifetime. The bear does not need to announce itself. The forest already